How do you describe the pros and cons of feudalism? Feudalism was a political and social system that dominated much of Europe during the Middle Ages. Like any system, it had both pros and cons. Pros of feudalism: social stability. Feudalism provided a sense of social stability during a time of political and economic instability. People knew their place in society and were often bound to their lords by a sense of duty and loyalty. Military protection. Feudalism also provided military protection to people in a time when bandits and other marauders roamed the countryside. Lords provided military protection to their vassals in exchange for their loyalty and service. Decentralization of power. The feudal system allowed for the decentralization of power. Rather than having a single centralized authority, power was distributed among many lords and vassals, which allowed for greater local autonomy. Cons of feudalism. Inequality. One of the biggest drawbacks of feudalism was the extreme inequality between different social classes. The nobility had all the power and wealth, while the peasants and serfs were relegated to lives of poverty and hardship. Limited social mobility. Under feudalism, social mobility was extremely limited. A person born into the lower classes had little opportunity to move up in society, as they were bound to their lord by obligation and had little chance of acquiring wealth or education. Dependence on personal relationships. Feudalism relied heavily on personal relationships between lords and vassals. This meant that people's lives and livelihoods were often subject to the whims of their lord. If a lord was capricious or malicious, their vassals could suffer greatly. Limited economic growth. The feudal system was not conducive to economic growth. The lack of social mobility and the concentration of power in the hands of the nobility meant that there was little opportunity for innovation or entrepreneurship. In summary, while feudalism did provide some benefits such as social stability and military protection, its drawbacks, including inequality, limited social mobility, dependence on personal relationships, and limited economic growth, make it a system that ultimately failed to provide for the needs and aspirations of all members of society.